women often suppress their needs. They compromise to make do, to make the relationship work, to not have conflict. But it often comes from a place of some level of fear. I don't know if there's going to be anybody else out there. Who else is going to want me?
Hi, I'm Deirdre Breckenridge. I've spent my entire career helping women to get unstuck, to share their stories, nurture relationships, and to grow their brands. But most of all, to find their voices so they can make a difference. Women Worldwide features the stories of passionate women and the ups and downs of their journeys. With deep insight and advice, let Women Worldwide ignite your passion so you can excel in life. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Thank you for showing up every week, wherever you are in this world. And if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, or maybe you're now watching us on YouTube, hope you're subscribed to the Deirdre Breckenridge channel. Just want to thank you. Thank you so much for sharing how these stories of our guests are helping you. It's fueling your passion, powering up your own voice, and that you're working through some of your own challenges as guests share what they've been through. We are trying to change lives with each individual story. That's always been our goal. Okay, let's get to today's guest and the topic. The topic is personal relationships. Why is it that sometimes we find ourselves in relationships with partners that aren't right? And, it's not easy to navigate this. Everybody wants to find joy and love, and to be trapped in a relationship that's hurtful or harmful is not good for your health. So today, joining me on the show is Iris Benrubi. She is a psychotherapist and a marriage counselor. She's also a dating and a relationship coach. She's the author of a book, Lonely and Single, to Loved and Adored. And Iris is going to share her journey and her tips from her book. So Iris, it's great to have you on my show. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me and for the difference that you're making, Deirdre.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'm so excited to have you talk about relationships and all of the ways that we can kind of navigate away from the ones that are harmful. But first, I always ask the question about, how did you get to where you are? Psychotherapist, marriage counselor, to dating and relationship coach.
Well, it's been a long journey, and this is my fourth career. So I'll kind of bypass up to my third career. My daughter brings home this little note from school that says, anybody who want to teach parenting can take this course for free. I'm pretty arrogant. I figure I don't need any help with parenting. I'm a good enough parent, but I want to learn how to deliver content to a public. And as I'm taking the program over the 6 weeks, I'm applying what I learned in the program to my kids. And I went, oh my God, this is so much easier. This is what I want to do. So I went back and I got my master's in counseling psychology, became a psychotherapist, marriage counselor, did that for many, many years until my marriage of 18 years ended in divorce to the man that I was sure was my soulmate. Like I vowed I would be one of that 50% that made it. And when it didn't, I had a couple of years of real soul searching, like identity crisis. I'm not a wife anymore. I'm only a part-time mom. Who am I in the world? And from there, after a couple of years, I decided to enter the wild, wild west of dating.
Oh, gosh.
It was not a pretty sight until
it's a different game, right?
Totally, especially the second time in the second half of life. And so I had to own that I had some blind spots. As a psychotherapist myself, I couldn't see my own blind spots. So I got my coaching. I got clear on what needed to shift within me and what I needed to look for. Found the man of my dreams that I'm living with and sharing my life. And for the last few years, I've been teaching women how to find, keep, and maintain the relationship of a lifetime so that they don't have to go through those 10 years that I went through.
Right. I mean, your story has such a happy ending. And I think that's to let listeners know that you don't have to go through the 10 years of dating hell. I mean, it is good you have to, of course, I'm sure, step back and find yourself. Is that a part of your book? And
I think your book is 6 proven steps to sort of get to this loved and cherished. Perhaps maybe even share a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so basically, both in the book and in the programs that I teach, it's really looking at 3 components. It's really looking at who are you in the world? How do you show up? What's your value? Because my experience, because I do work with men, but I work a lot with women, but so I'm just going to speak to women specifically today, is that women often suppress their needs. They compromise to make do, to make the relationship work, to not have conflict. But it often comes from a place of some level of fear. I don't know if there's going to be anybody else out there. Who else is going to want me? Well, all of my quirks and my baggage. So once we really get to know our own value, then we start to look for something different or someone different. So that's the first piece, and getting clear on what it is, the kind of man that's going to be the wind beneath your wings. Because I hear women often say, oh, there's no good men left, they're all gay, all the good men are married, like all of these stories we tell ourselves, which
Right.
keep us safe, but also keep us off the market. So there are a lot of really great men out there. We just need to be clear on what we're looking for, because you might be a marathon runner and he might be a couch potato, or maybe he just likes to watch the hockey and the baseball games. And maybe you like to backpack through the world versus he likes to only do cruises. There's no right or wrong. It's just about clarity about what's going to make you happy. So that's the first piece. Did you want me to go on?
Well, I want to ask a question, because you talked about the fear, right? And kind of not being able to know who you are in the world. And you have to have self-confidence. And I'm thinking, is it because when we don't have this self-confidence, we attract what is unhealthy to us?
Yeah, so that's part of it. That's part of the reason why we suppress our own needs. We don't speak up. We're not honest with ourselves. But the second piece that I really like to work on is what I call the relationship blueprint. So we have a blueprint that we're born into in our families. When we're born as babies, we're a blank canvas. But what gets imprinted on us is how relationships work, how women are supposed to be, how men are supposed to be. What's your role in the family? Are you the peacekeeper? Are you the pleaser? Are you the rebel? We get an identity, and then we also look at how did our parents interact? How was conflict? What was my relationship with my dad? Could I really lean on him? Will he be there for me when I needed him? Can I lean on my mom? And that becomes imprinted on us, and that's what we continue to look for. So even though we may not like it, like a parent who was emotionally unavailable, that is a relationship blueprint. And that's why we're not attracted to some really great men. And that's why we have a type. We often talk about being attracted to the same man in different clothing. It's because we have a relationship blueprint. So that's the bad news. The good news is that you can shift that.
I was just going to ask, how hard is it to shift that?
It's not. It takes some work. It takes some inner work and some shift in your mindset and your beliefs. But I've done that on myself. My attachment style, my relationship blueprint has always been the more anxious one. Oh my God, he didn't call me for 20 minutes. Did he find somebody else? He hasn't texted me yet. Could it be I said something wrong? Let me look at my text again, because should I have said it differently? Am I good enough? Am I lovable? And through the work that I have done, I've been able to get to what's called more secure functioning, attracted a man who has secure functioning, which creates a sense of safety for me in relationship, which that in itself continues the healing.
That's excellent. So is that the relationship blueprint is the number 2 part, the component that's really important, and sort of shifting your blueprint, which you just mentioned. What is that third part?
So the third,
or is that actually the shift?
The shift is a really important piece, because you want to make sure that you're starting. So what happens is when we shift our relationship blueprint, you are attracted to and attracting in different types of men. And so that's why it's really important to make that shift so that you have new choices. Now, once you've done that, we teach you how to write an online profile that attracts the kind of man that you're looking for, what to look for when you're dating. There are very different things that you're looking for when you're dating the second time around than the first time around. Right? We were much more naive. We were just falling in love. But
Right.
there's so many more issues right now once we're in the second half of our lives. We have children. How do we integrate families? We may have aging parents. We may only be able to live within, a certain radius because we need to be available to maybe children or parents.
Right.
And so there's a lot more things we want to start to look at. And all of us have baggage at this time around. Many
Absolutely.
of us have been through at least one or two relationships, married or not,
Right.
and then they're tried to date and then feeling like, what's wrong with me? Maybe there's some secret out there that somebody forgot to tell me.
What is that secret? I feel like after, going through different relationships, so I'm on my second marriage, and I just feel that I knew what I wanted, second time around. And, happy to say that after almost 11 years, we just took our honeymoon and felt like newlyweds. And that's definitely very, very different than past relationships. So I do think it's growth, experiencing, and understanding yourself, and really getting to some of the things that you said about your blueprint, which I find is fascinating.
And so what we know, I'm going to talk about the therapeutic piece, is that we pick our partners based on the wounds that we have from childhood. And it's not because we're masochistic, because we're trying to heal those wounds. And if we pick a man who's conscious, or a woman, if you're gay or bi, if we pick a partner who is conscious, we both get to help the other person heal from those wounds and create a happy and safe relationship. So it's the biology, it's embedded in our wiring, and there's an opportunity in that. We can look at it as, oh, I'm stuck, this is all I'm ever going to attract. Or we can look at it as like, what's the shift I need to make to be able to be attracted to a different kind of partner?
That's really interesting. When you talk about happy and safe, everybody wants a happy and safe relationship, but that doesn't mean perfect. What are your expectations when somebody works with you? Is there a perfect relationship that you're going to achieve?
One of my clients said this, and I love it. She said, he's not perfect, but he's perfect for me.
Nice.
So it means that the different pieces are fitting in with ease. It's not a push and pull, a power struggle of, I need this, but I need this. I want to go on a cruise, but I want to stay in a hostel. I want to go away, but no, I want to stay home and clean up the backyard. So, there's give and take, obviously, in every relationship, and no one's going to be your match. Actually, I did an interview with Dr. Phil, and he said, ladies, don't look for men that are 100%. We don't exist.
No.
Go for 80% and work to grow the rest.
Exactly.
You need to be clear on what that 80% is for you.
Right. I had a friend a long time ago who was so, very particular about the men that she was going to date. And I remember she was with one gentleman who was such a package, but she didn't like the shoes. She didn't like his style. And that was a reason. Well, obviously there's probably more to it, but it's fascinating, some of the things that somebody wouldn't put up with. That would be a part of that 20% that you'd say, oh, who cares? Right?
Here's a present for you. Father's Day, your birthday, I got you a pair of shoes. That is so easy to change. Yes. Women often get hung up on the exterior. And I'm going to go on a limb because I don't know your friend, but this applies to a lot of the women that I work with. If you're finding a tiny little thing that doesn't work for you and you're cutting them out, it's because you are afraid of intimacy. You're afraid of losing yourself. You're afraid of having your heart broken. So it keeps you safe, but it also keeps you feeling good about you. It's not my fault it didn't work. If only you had the right shoes, you would have been perfect.
Exactly. So how do you, when you're in a relationship, how do you kind of navigate ups and downs? Is there anything, I know that you accept the 20% and you get in the relationship, but what happens when things get rocky? What can you do to actually make things a little bit better?
Yeah, one of my mentors that I trained with in marriage counseling said that relationship. And he said, it's actually an opportunity to deepen the intimacy and the connection. So when there is safety for both partners to talk about what they feel, how it impacted them, and what they need without the other person getting defensive, but simply hearing them, you may not agree with them, but
Right.
hearing them and understanding them, it creates an environment where you're allowed to feel what you feel, need what you need, and then you get to negotiate and compromise. Somebody said, life is what you pitch for, and you're always pitching. And it's the same in relationship. You're either compromising your needs, shutting your mouth down, or you're arguing and fighting for what you need, or you're sitting down in a safe place and talking about how you feel and what you need and how that would make you feel. You have opportunities, whichever way you choose to go about it. And chances are, if you look at it, you're doing what one of your parents has done, or the exact opposite. That's kind of our decision in life, right?
Right.
We either do exactly what our parents did, or we're never going to do what they did, and we do the exact opposite. And usually none of them work. There's an in-between place.
Yeah, kind of find that middle ground. Do you find that women come to you when they're in a not so healthy relationship, or it's usually when they're seeking somebody because they just got out of the relationship? When does somebody actually work with you?
Yeah, so both. It could be either the relationship isn't working and what are the new strategies that I need to be able to implement to take it up to the next level, or it could be that they've tried and tried just like I did for 10 years until I finally went, okay, there's obviously something I'm missing. I'm a psychotherapist, it's still not enough. What are my own blind spots that I can't see in me that someone else can feed back to me and give me new strategies, and I can go, oh, of course, that makes sense. Now I get to implement it, and I met the man of my dreams.
Iris, are there common blind spots that you see frequently in women?
Um,
That's a hard question.
no, so let me just kind of review. I think the blind spot for most women, if I'm going to generalize,
Hmm.
is how they show up in relationship without that awareness of how they show up. I'll give you a great example. I met a neighbor of mine many years after I got divorced, and I said to her, oh, Nancy, I don't know if you know, but Mike and I aren't together anymore. And she said, I'm not surprised. And at first, it's like, I didn't even know what to say. It took me like 10 seconds. And I said, yeah, the problem was that I treated him as the prize. And she said, no, Iris, the problem was that he didn't treat you as the prize as well. And I'm,
Oh,
oh my God, where was I during this relationship? Somebody outside of my relationship could see something. And she was never in my house. She lives about 5 doors down. Our kids played on the road, but she was able to see something, my blind spot, that I
wow.
knew about me. Right? And then we operate in our soup, right? And then
Yeah.
we don't realize how we respond, don't respond, react, respond. So we often need somebody outside of us to be able to say, like one woman said to me, her boyfriend didn't talk to her for a week because he was mad about something, I don't remember. And she said to him, it's not normal to not talk to someone for a week, and you don't talk to me for a day or two, that's fine. And I said to her, isn't it interesting that you think it's okay to be cut out emotionally for a day or two? And she went, oh,
Oh,
that was her blind spot, because that's how her family behaved. They got angry. They punished each other by cutting them off emotionally. Those are our blind spots, what we think is normal and that we don't see and we don't challenge.
wow. So Iris, with the blind spot, the neighbor had pointed something out to you. If that had been, let's say, a family member pointing it out to you, would you have been receptive? Or, I mean, maybe you could apply it to your clients, or are they receptive when somebody shares with you when you're in the moment? Or is it after the fact that you're kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got
there's
it.
something in business called a 360. So in business, you're asking the people around you how you show up. If you're open to it, you get to ask your friends and your family, how do you show up in relationship to them? But also, what do they hear about how you show up in relationships with a potential partner? Because other people see us in different contexts. It doesn't mean that they have the truth. It
Right.
means they have an opinion, but when you're hearing the same thing over and over from several people, it's something that you might want to look at.
Interesting. You know, Iris, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts just for a moment. We're going to shift our focus over to today's sponsor, which is Rutledge Publishing. Rutledge is one of the leading publishers of academic textbooks and journals, and they also happen to be my publisher of my book, Answers for Modern Communicators. And Iris, I wrote this book. It's a Q&A book. I've answered over 150 questions, all about relationships, socializing your brand, maintaining your reputation, measurement, and success. And I thought it would be fun if you answer a question from my book.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so your question is question number 51. How do you make your friends stick around? What can you do?
What a great question. So the first thing that pops up to me is most people want to be heard. You don't need to agree with what they're saying. Most of us, or many people, feel that if I hear someone and understand what they're going through and what they feel, it means I agree with them. They may say, my boss is really mean. He won't give me 6 weeks off. I'm so frustrated. And if you want to have relationships that last, you get to say, that must be really hard. Someone just wants to be acknowledged for what they're feeling. And then after that, once they feel acknowledged, then they get to look at themselves because they're not fighting to be heard. Then it becomes an easier space for them to shift if they want to shift. But really, relationships are about how safe do I feel with you? And I know that we've talked about that sense of safety, which means how can I be with you so that I'm not judged? Do I have to be somebody else? Do I have to bite certain opinions? Do I have to change my personality so that you approve of me? Or can I simply just be me wherever I'm at? And the more we can allow someone to be who they are, accepting them, not necessarily agreeing with them, the more space there is for them to want to be back with you. Now, I want to add a caveat. If they have some values that aren't in alignment with you, you might choose not to have them in your inner circle. You know, I talk about several concentric circles. They may be way out here, or they may not even be in your concentric circles at all. But for people that you want to stick around, is about people that are in alignment with your values, and also that the two of you can turn to each other at times of stress, at times of joy, and to know that you're each going to be each other's cheerleader.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And thank you to Rutledge for sponsoring our show today. All right, let's dive back into our discussion. We left off on some of those blind spots, which was really interesting. This segment portion of the show gets a little more personal around you. So I want to pivot to maybe you could share something you've learned about yourself that was unexpected as you went through your entire journey to where you are now. Anything stand out?
Well, that story that I told you was probably one of the biggest ones. The second one was how difficult it was for me to speak what it is that I need. That growing up in my family, that you just kind of suppressed and you went with the flow. And my parents were both great parents, but you just learn certain things in your family, and how hard it was for me to find my words. And I would mull it over and try to find the right words and talk myself out of it. But then I'd feel it again and then try to justify it and rationalize, talk myself out of it, until I had to learn to have the courage to speak my truth. And that's when I could find my man, because unless I was speaking my truth, I was making do in a relationship that wasn't meeting my needs. So there may not have been, I'm not a fighter, so there may not have been any external conflict, but there was lots of inner conflict. I didn't feel peaceful. I didn't feel taken care of, and I didn't end relationships when they needed to end. I thought if I give it another chance, if I give him more love, maybe he'll understand me better and give me what I need. And I have a few stories around that if you want.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so here's a great example. There's one man that we would go away I live in Ontario, so we'd go Northern Ontario, visit some little towns, and I would ask him. In those days, I had either a Trio or a BlackBerry, and I said to him, "Please lock the car doors so that I can leave my purse with my Trio that had all my appointments of
Yeah.
clients." And he'd say, "No, you just need to learn that nobody breaks into cars up here." And so I would carry my purse every single time. Every weekend, we'd go up north to visit another town until his daughter, her car was locked in a small town and somebody broke in and stole her purse.
Oh
So
my
there was no room for me to have my needs met. Right. And I would try, and finally I gave up, but I was still in the relationship.
Unbelievable. I mean, I can relate to you. You know how you feel, you know what you need, but yet we still give in and say one more time, okay, it's okay. Let's, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe it's me that's not reasonable. Right. And
Right.
he would tell me, "Oh, you're too sensitive." And it's like, oh, so maybe I am too sensitive, right? So it's finding that grounding place where we can own who we are. No, simply, this is what I need. You might feel it's too sensitive. This is still what I need, and be able to stand for it and see, is he willing to give it to me, even though he doesn't agree with it? As long as you're not doing anything immoral or breaking values, or is he not? And that gives you the information you need, whether to stay or to move on.
Exactly. What about younger women? So some of the things that you talked about, finding that clarity, we discussed, knowing what you need, the self-confidence, suppressing certain things, not to do that, that relationship blueprint. Is this something that younger women would actually be able to do, or, just to prevent getting into the wrong relationships?
Yeah, so first I would want a lot of young women to really examine why they're getting married, because a lot of the young women that I've worked with, or even women at a later age, will say they got into a relationship because either the clock was ticking, or they were going to find anyone else, or their family was pressuring them. So make sure you're getting into a relationship because the relationship is in alignment with your values. The second thing is, if a man tells you something, believe him. Don't go into the relationship thinking you're going to change him over
Oh
time.
my gosh, that's like one of the biggest mistakes that I hear a lot, where, he's going to change. I can change that. I'm going to change that. That's not going to happen anymore. No. And the older the person is, male or female, the more the habits are kind of cemented into their DNA. It's going to continue.
Unless they purposely say, this is something that I'm working on.
Right. Or want to change.
Yeah, don't work on something more for someone than he or she wants to work on themselves. You don't want to be investing in more to help that person if they're not in alignment with you. There's that old adage of women get married hoping men will change, and men get married so hoping women will never change.
I think I've heard that. That's really funny. Do you think it also, you mentioned, the time, the being on a time clock. Isn't there something also to be said about taking time to really get to know somebody? I mean, do you really know? And I'm speaking of this because I think I was engaged within 4 or 5 months, my first husband. So talk a little bit about time and learning about one another.
Yeah, so the first 6 months is what we call limerence. That's the honeymoon stage. Everything's great. Our blinders are on. It's not a big deal. That thing over there, that if I really looked at it, might be something we need to
That
address.
elephant in the room.
The fact that every time his ex-wife calls, he drops what he's doing and he runs to her, or whatever that is. And so after the 6 months, we start to see reality. Relationships are great when there's no conflict. Everything's great, but you want to start to see when there's conflict, how do the two of you show up? Can you hear each other? Can you accommodate? Or does he or she dismiss you, tell you you're crazy, you're too sensitive, tell you that you need to change, he's not willing to change? I've got one couple I'm working with where he says, this is it. I'm at the end of my patience. I'm not willing to do any more. She needs to make the changes. Relationships don't work that way.
No.
right? Two people, you need to be in a relationship where both people are willing to accommodate one another. Otherwise, it's just one person wins and one person loses. So you want to see, how does he show up when there's conflict? Do your values really align? When it's the holidays, does he want to do the same thing that you do? Meaning that if you're a family person and you want to have a big extended family, is he okay with that? Is he willing to go to your family one year and to his family next? You want to start to see when there's conflicting needs, how do those get worked out? How do your emotions get handled? Does he cut you off when he's angry at you? Does he turn towards you? Does he turn away? All of these things you need to see that only open up over time.
Right. How do you feel about the whole online dating scene? And, I mean, certainly back in the day when I was dating, it wasn't all about Match or Coffee with Bagel or some of these dating sites, right? So, can you speak to that? Is this, personally, is it something that you would find very healthy and helpful, or not really?
The answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Without any skills and knowing what you're doing, it can really be a mess, because people often think that dating is a numbers game, and that's a recipe for exhaustion. If you don't know how to screen and sort through potential partners, you're going on date after date after date and being disappointed because the man's not in alignment with what you're looking for. And at some point you start to question yourself, is it me, or is it maybe I'm not just one of those women that's not meant to be in relationships? So that's the no part. The yes part is when you learn the skills on how to screen and sort. First thing we teach you is how to write an online profile that attracts the kind of partner you're looking for. There's a way in writing the online profile that has a man say, oh, I could see myself with her. And that's the kind of man that you want to attract, who has the same ideal of the kind of life he wants to live, and he sees that in your profile. After that, you need to assess a man. Your job, I always say, women need to be the buyer, not the seller. I often say, like, you go into a grocery store and you'll pick up an apple and you look it over for any bruises before you buy it, or you pick up a quart of milk, you look at the expiry date. We spend more energy on our groceries to decide if we're going to invest in them than we do on men.
That's scary. If you think about it.
But it talks about this void, this longing, this desire to be in a relationship of, I'll do what it takes to make it work. I was one of those, right? It's like, oh, he picked me. Great, let me see what I need to do to make it work, rather than...
And that's selling. That is your point to selling. What can I do to make it work?
Exactly. And then what I teach women is take a step back. It's not like way back here, let me see if you're valuable enough for me, but let me see if you are in alignment with the kind of life that I want. And once you're able to do that easily, dating actually becomes fun. Online dating becomes fun.
Sure.
Because then you get to pick the kind of men that are going to be fun for you, even if it's just on a date.
Right. Do you find that, women, after they come out of a relationship, as they're doing the soul searching and the blueprint, that they are more apt to try to be with different men, like men who are outside of the type, because the type is a part of the blueprint?
Yes, because once they've done the work to change that blueprint, they're actually naturally attracted to a different type. They won't allow what I call the bar for a certain kind of behavior gets much lower, the tolerance. So it means that it doesn't, it's not about calling men bad or it's about the certain type of behavior that doesn't work for you. You get to speak up and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. Can we talk about it?
Right.
And so it allows you to quickly assess whether he's willing to give you what you need or not. And so you have the skills to quickly move on to someone else instead of investing a year just to find out that it's another broken heart.
Right. And who needs another broken heart when you can prevent that? Did you find that you, as you moved into your loving relationship, I think you said of 18 years, that you took along the good qualities, but then added what you really wanted and needed, and I guess your relationship now must look completely different, and that's what you find out? Because I feel like my relationship is completely different. It's almost like I'm a different person.
Yeah, and so I think what happens in the second half of life, we also change. We grow, we evolve, we have different needs. Sometimes in relationships, you just start to part ways. Sometimes
Right.
different stages of life require different values, and you find that you're not in alignment and sometimes don't have the skills to resolve it. So when you're going into dating again, you really want to get clear on what are your values, what do you need to feel valued in relationship, what do you need to feel safe, and also what does fun look like for you. I always tell women there are 3 questions to filter through when you're going into a second date or deciding to get into a committed relationship. Am I having fun? Do I feel safe? And am I happy?
3 great questions.
Yeah.
So having fun, pivot to, that means knowing when to stop all of your work and focus on your partner and still have a good time together. How do you manage? I'm sure you're extremely busy with client work. You know, you're an author, you're probably speaking at different places. How do you manage your time to make your partner feel like you value the relationship and he's a priority?
Yeah, so I want to say, I'm going to start with saying it's not about quantity of time, although you must have a certain amount of time. It's about the quality. Is there
Right.
an easygoingness? Like, I'll give you an example. This last weekend, we went up north, we went to a beach, and then driving back, he decided, I want to take the off-beaten road, and let's try this road, and but it's also in alignment with who I am, adventurous, open, easygoing.
That's
I
so
don't
nice.
Yeah, but and it could be that you're not, and you may not fit easily with a man who needs adventure into trying new things. That's why I say it's so important to know who you are so that you're not hitting that wall over and over in a relationship. He calls us both world curious. I've been to
Oh,
57 countries.
wow.
He loves learning about new people. And so, every time we're talking about something, it's like, oh, I wonder what this means. So one of us will Google it while the other one's driving.
That's such a match, right?
Exactly. And that's why the relationship is so easy. And so when we have conflict, I don't even call them fights. They're little blips, misunderstandings, miscommunicated or uncommunicated expectations. We talk about it, but because we feel safe, it disappears.
Right.
Feel safe and connected again. It's about, do we turn to each other in times of conflict? The couples that have the most difficulty is when one or both turns away from the other one. We both turn towards each other. So again, another value that's in alignment.
Wow. So how do you stay up on all of this? I mean, I know that you're working with clients and you're in it, but is there an education process? What's feeding you your knowledge so that you can help all of these people?
Always doing training, always doing coaching training. I'm actually doing a coaching training and a therapeutic training right now. So I've got both pieces going on, but I'm continually getting updated on attachments and couples and how to keep relationships vital. What is the things that stop relationships from staying vital and alive? So I'm always in training.
That's
I'm always
awesome.
reading.
And is that what keeps you motivated every day? Or is it more you see the outcome of what's happening with your clients?
That's it. I come away from my clients, and some days I am just beaming. It's like, oh my God, like the relationship has changed, or she's found a man, or she got engaged. Or I'll give you a couple examples. One woman that I worked with, she used to have screaming matches with her mom. After we finished working, she'd go out with her mom and enjoy lunches together.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Another example, a woman said that her friend got upset with her, and she said normally she would have just gone over and over what she said, what her friend said, how she could have said it differently. She wouldn't have slept all night. And after the work that we did together, she said she heard her friend because she cares about her, and she slept like a baby. I walk away from that. First of all, I get goosebumps. It's like, oh my God, I've had an impact on someone's life
Right.
and they have a better life. And it excites me. That's what feeds me.
You've changed a life. That's awesome. What a good feeling. Well, we're already at the part of the show where you get to give your parting advice. So, Iris, what do you want to tell women worldwide listeners about relationships and being happy and getting to that loved and adored place that they want to be?
Yeah, I think the one piece of advice I have for you is to be introspective. Be responsible for yourself. That's the only power you have in life. You can't change someone else. You can ask them for what you need. They either do or they don't. But the place where you get to create inner peace, the place where you get to know that you've done everything that you can to make something work, is through knowing yourself the best and looking at those pieces that you might want to shift into a more empowered way of being that you saw in your family, but maybe it didn't work so well for them, but you don't have any other skills. So invest in yourself, whatever that looks like. Get a coach, read a book, take a program, do something online. Get the skills that you need to upgrade yourself. It's like on our computer. We always get all these notices about upgrades, right? It's
Right.
because we want to keep up with the needs, right? You need to upgrade yourself. You can't be the same person you were at 18.
No, definitely not. And thank goodness that you're not. Thank you so much. That was excellent advice. Invest in yourself. Women Worldwide listeners, please invest in yourself. Iris, where can people find out more about you, your work, and your book?
So a couple of very quick places. If you want an easy ebook to download for free, Spark a Man's Desire Without Chasing Him, is just sparkamansdesire.com. You can download that ebook, or you can go to my website, foreverlovecoaching.com.
That's great. Thank you very much for all of your sound and sage advice. We learned a lot from you today, so thank you.
Yeah, and Deidre, thank you for everything that you're doing and the contribution that makes to women.
Thank you. I appreciate that you said that. We will continue sharing the stories and just giving and helping people. So Iris, thank you for your time. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into Women Worldwide. Please keep the feedback coming. We love hearing from you. Rate us on iTunes. Give us a shout out on Twitter. We're always there. I'm always there. Make sure that you check us out on Facebook, subscribe to YouTube. And if you want updates every week, you can get them. Just go to womenworldwideshow.com. Thanks, friends. Until our next episode, stay focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.